Welcome back. Tonight's story is about a woman who watched her neighbor poison her service dog to stop him from barking at midnight and then carried a manila envelope into a federal briefing room that ended 4 lives by the end of the month. Pour the coffee. Stay close. My neighbor killed my dog to keep him quiet. 6 days later, I killed her whole world from a desk. My name is Renata Solano. I am 39 years old. I live in El Paso, Texas. And for the last 11 years, I have worked as an intelligence analyst for the Drug Enforcement Administration out of the Field Division on Montana Avenue. On a Tuesday in early March at 11:47 at night, I was sitting on the cold tile of my kitchen floor with the body of a 72-pound German Shepherd in my lap. And the only thing I could think clearly was that the wrapper near his water bowl smelled like burnt almonds and motor oil. I knew that smell. I had read about that smell in 3 separate case files that year. The kitchen clock above the stove kept ticking, loud, calm, indifferent. My hands were shaking, but my brain was not. My brain was already opening a folder. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from tonight. I want to know who is with me on this one. Story start. I want you to understand who Diesel was, because the story does not work if he is just a dog to you. He was not just a dog to me. He was the reason I could sleep through a thunderstorm. He was the reason I could walk into a grocery store on a Sunday afternoon without my chest locking up. I came home from Kandahar in 2012 with a back full of shrapnel and a head full of noise, and for the first 3 years, I did not sleep through a single night. Diesel came into my life in 2016, a working line shepherd trained by a veteran nonprofit out of Las Cruces. He cost $42,000 to train. They gave him to me for free because of who I had been before the desk job. He could feel a panic attack coming 20 seconds before I could. He would put his head on my knee and breathe slow until I copied him. I bought the little stucco house on Aurelia Court in 2019. 3 bedrooms, a brick courtyard, a pomegranate tree that the previous owner had babied for 30 years. It was the first thing in my life that was only mine. The neighborhood was the kind of quiet that El Paso does well in the spring. Lawn sprinklers at 6 in the morning, mariachi from someone's open window on Saturdays, the smell of carne asada drifting over the cinder block walls every Sunday around 5. My neighbor on the south side was a woman named Camille Whitaker, 43, real estate agent, blonde, blown out, the kind of laugh that carried 2 houses down. She drove a white Range Rover with a vanity plate that said, "Sold Eat." She brought me a tin of homemade pecan brittle the week I moved in, and she said, "Sweet as a glass of tea, we are going to be such good friends." We were not. Camille had a boyfriend named Brent Halloran. Brent was 46, gym body, capped teeth, a contractor who never seemed to be at a job site. He moved in with her sometime in 2022. I noticed him because Diesel noticed him first. The first afternoon, Brent walked his pickup into Camille's driveway. Diesel sat up from a dead sleep on the cool kitchen floor, ears forward, a low rumble in his chest I had never heard him use on a person before. He was not a reactive dog. He had been desensitized to gunfire, to fireworks, to children running at him with sticky hands. He looked at Brent through the kitchen window, and he growled. That was the first warning sign. I should have written it down that night. I did not. The second warning sign came in November of 2024. I was carrying groceries in from the car at maybe 10 in the evening, and a black SUV with paper plates pulled up to Camille's curb. 2 men got out, neither of whom I had ever seen. They each carried a square box, the size you might use for a cake. They walked straight through her side gate without ringing the bell. Diesel, who was sitting on the front step waiting for me, did not bark. He stared. His tail did not move. That stare meant something. I had seen him use it once before, on a guy in a parking lot in Sunland Park who turned out to be in the middle of a domestic violence call. I told myself I was tired. I told myself everyone gets late deliveries. I carried my groceries inside, and I did not write it down. That was the second mistake. The triggering incident, the one that started the clock, happened on the last Saturday in February. Camille knocked on my door at 8 in the morning. She was wearing pink workout clothes and full makeup, and she was holding a paper plate of lemon bars covered in plastic wrap. She said, in the careful, slow voice she used when she wanted something, "I just wanted to say, I hope my Brent's work trucks have not been waking you up at night. You know how it is with contractors, those early starts." I looked her in the eye and I said, "Camille, the trucks come at 2 in the morning. They are not work trucks." Her smile did not move. She said, "Oh, well, I will mention it." And then, in a voice almost too soft to hear, she said, "You might want to keep that dog inside at night. It is not safe out here for animals." I took the lemon bars. I threw them in the trash the second she walked off the porch. Something in my stomach turned over. I went to my home office and I opened my personal laptop, not the work one, and I started a document. I called it Aurelia Court. I wrote down every late delivery I could remember, every plate I had seen, the dates the black SUV had come and gone. I had been an intelligence analyst for 11 years. I knew how to build a file in my sleep. 11 days later, my dog was dead. It was a Tuesday in early March. I came home from work at 9 in the evening because we had a wire room session run long. My porch light was on. The side gate to my courtyard was unlatched. I never left the side gate unlatched. I had 9 years of muscle memory about that gate. I walked through it with my hand already moving toward the service weapon at my hip, and I saw him from 20 feet away. Diesel was lying on his side in the brick courtyard near his water bowl, and he was not moving. I have been in 3 war zones, and I have read 1,000 witness statements, and I will tell you that nothing in my life prepared me for the sound that came out of my own mouth when I knelt next to him. He was still warm. He was still breathing, barely. His eyes were open, but they were not tracking. There was foam on his muzzle, pale yellow, the color of a thinned-out custard. I scooped him up, all 72 pounds of him, and I ran. I did not call an ambulance. I did not call a friend. I drove to the 24-hour emergency veterinary hospital on Mesa Street with my hand on his chest the whole way, talking to him, telling him that he was the best boy, that he was my best boy, that he had to stay with me a little longer because we were not done yet. The tech who met me at the door took one look at the foam and said, "Ma'am, we need to take him right now." I sat in the waiting room under a flickering fluorescent light, and I waited for 34 minutes. A vet named Dr. Mateo Ruiz came out in scrubs that were wet from washing his hands too many times. He sat down in the plastic chair next to mine. He did not say, "I am sorry." He said, "Ms. Solano, did your dog have access to any kind of industrial solvent?" I said no. He said, "Did he get into a garage? Anyone's garage?" I said no. He said, "This was not accidental, and I am required to ask you, who would have wanted to hurt your dog?" There was a smell coming off the bag of evidence he was carrying. The wrapper they had pulled out of Diesel's stomach, burnt almonds, motor oil, a chemical bite underneath. I knew that smell. I had read about that smell in 3 federal case files that year. A novel synthetic opioid analog that traffickers had been pressing into food-grade wrappers to move through residential corridors without dogs detecting it. The compound had a signature. The packaging had a signature. The packaging had been moving through El Paso for 9 months, and we had not been able to source it. I did not cry. I did not fight. I sat very still in that plastic chair, and I made one quiet promise to my dog, who was still warm on a steel table behind a swinging door. I said, out loud, in a whisper only he and I could hear, "Baby, I am going to end them with a piece of paper." Then I drove home, sat on the cold tile of my kitchen floor, and started the folder. If you have ever had a neighbor smile at you while they were hurting you, drop a 1 in the comments. I want to know I am not alone in this. Take a breath with me. I know this part is heavy. A stranger noticed before anyone official did. Her name was Ofelia Mendez, and she was 78 years old, and she lived directly across the street from me. She had watched me carry my dog out at 9 in the evening, and she had watched me come back at midnight without him. And at 6 the next morning, she was on my porch in a housecoat and slippers, holding a glass casserole dish of green chile enchiladas. She did not knock. She just sat on my front step with the casserole on her knees, and she waited. When I opened the door, she said, "Mija, I saw what you carried out of here last night. I made you food. You are not going to eat it, but I made it anyway." Then she said, very quietly, "I saw who came over the wall." She had been awake. She had been awake the way old women are awake when their hips hurt and the house is too quiet. She had seen Brent Halloran come over the cinder block wall between Camille's courtyard and mine at 8:14 on Tuesday night. She had seen him crouch by Diesel's water bowl. She had seen him leave. She had written down the time on the back of a church bulletin because, she said, something in her gut had told her it would matter. She handed me that church bulletin on the porch. Her handwriting was beautiful, the kind of cursive they do not teach anymore. I called my supervisor at 7:02 that morning. His name is Daniel Kessler. He has been my boss for 9 years. I told him 3 things, in order. I told him my service dog had been killed the night before. I told him the veterinary toxicology had flagged a compound that matched 3 open federal cases. And I told him I had been quietly building a residential pattern file on the property next to mine for 11 days, and that I believed the boyfriend of the woman who lived there was running late-night transfers out of her garage. Daniel was quiet on the phone for a long time. Then he said, "Renata, do not come into the office. Stay home. I am coming to you." He came to my house with 2 other analysts and a senior agent named Priya Bhatt. They sat at my kitchen table, and they read the Aurelia court folder for 2 hours. Priya asked me 3 times if I was sure about the dates. I was sure about every date. The packaging fragment from the veterinary pathology lab matched, down to the embossed corner pattern, the wrappers recovered from a stash house in Horizon City the previous October. The same supplier, the same press, the same hand. The case was not new. The case had been sitting on my colleague's desk for 9 months. I had been looking at the wrong block of the same map the whole time. The search warrant on Brent Halloran's garage was executed 6 days later at 4:47 in the morning by a tactical team I was not allowed to be on. I sat in the operations center on Montana Avenue with a coffee that had gone cold an hour earlier, watching a thermal feed on a wall monitor, and I listened to the breach call over the headset. They found 17 kilograms of pressed product in a false floor under a workbench. They found a vacuum sealer. They found a roll of the food-grade wrapper, the kind that had been in my dog's stomach. They found a notebook in Camille Whitaker's handwriting with delivery times in it. They found 3 handguns. No one fired a shot. Brent Halloran was arrested in the garage. Camille Whitaker was arrested in her bathrobe in the kitchen, holding a coffee mug that said, "Live, Laugh, Love." The mug broke when she dropped it. I watched her on the live feed. She looked toward my house through the window over her sink, and for 1 second, only one, her face did something I will never forget. It went flat. The smile went away, and what was underneath was a person I had lived next to for 5 years and never actually seen. I rebuilt slowly after that, not the case. The case rebuilt itself. I rebuilt me. I took 4 weeks of leave. I slept in 20-minute pieces. I sat in the backyard under the pomegranate tree, and I cried in the kind of long, broken way I had not cried since the funeral of a friend in 2011. Ophelia came over every other afternoon with something in a glass dish. She never asked me how I was. She just sat next to me on the patio and peeled an orange and put half of it on a napkin on my knee. That is how grown women take care of each other in the neighborhoods I come from. No speeches, just an orange. In the 6th week, I drove to Las Cruces, and I met a litter of working-line shepherd puppies at the same nonprofit that had given me Diesel. I did not pick the puppy. He picked me. He climbed into my lap, and he put his chin on my sternum, and he sighed the same exact sigh Diesel used to sigh, and I sat in the grass, and I let him. His name is Rooker. He is 11 months old now. He is not a replacement. He is not even close. He is a separate, whole, ridiculous animal who chews my shoes and barks at the recycling truck and sleeps with his paws in the air. He is the second great love of my working life. The case moved through the federal pipeline the way these cases move. Indictments came down in May. The supplier upstream was identified through a phone Brent had been stupid enough to keep in his glove box. 2 more arrests in Juarez followed in June through partner coordination. The residential corridor that had been bleeding product into central El Paso for 9 months went quiet that summer. The wrapper with the burnt almond signature stopped appearing in our seizures by August. A senior agent told me, off the record, in a hallway in September, that my 11-page folder had closed a gap they had been chasing since the previous July. He said, "Solano, you have to know your dog cracked this open." I said, "I know." I said it without flinching. The confrontation, if you want to call it that, was not in a courtroom. The courtroom was paperwork. The real confrontation came in February of the following year, almost a year to the day after I sat on my kitchen floor with Diesel in my lap. Camille Whitaker had taken a plea agreement. She was being transferred from county to federal custody, and her attorney requested a victim impact statement from me, in writing, to be read aloud at her sentencing. I wrote it in one evening at my kitchen table. Rooker was asleep on my feet. I was allowed to be in the courtroom when it was read. I sat in the 2nd row. Camille sat at the defense table in a beige jumpsuit, hair pulled back, no makeup, and she looked, for the first time since I had known her, like a real person and not a brochure. The federal prosecutor read my statement out loud, 3 pages, single-spaced. I had not raised my voice once on the page. The last paragraph was the one that mattered. I had written, "Ms. Whitaker, on the morning you handed me a paper plate of lemon bars, you told me it was not safe out here for animals. I want you to understand something. You were right. It was not safe. You were the reason. And the dog you killed to keep quiet was the dog who taught me, 11 days later, exactly which wrapper to look for. He barked once in a toxicology report, and he was heard in 3 states. She did not look up. She put her forehead down on the defense table, and she stayed that way until the judge spoke. If you have stayed with me until now, thank you. Tell me in the comments what part of the story stayed with you the most. I drove home that afternoon on Interstate 10 with the windows down and the desert wind in my hair, and I talked to a little girl who used to live inside me. I told her that the men in the SUV outside her apartment building when she was 9, the ones who scared her so badly she did not sleep right for a year, those men had names now, and the names were on a federal docket because she had grown up into a woman who learned how to read a packaging pattern. I told her that the dog who had loved her had not died for nothing. I told her that being underestimated by people who smile at you while they hurt you is not a wound. It is a weapon, if you live long enough to pick it up. I told her that the quietest woman in the room is sometimes the one holding the folder, and then I drove the rest of the way home in silence, because Rooker was waiting at the window, and dinner was not going to make itself, and there was still good work to do tomorrow.